Not anymore.
Writing
Not
exercise?
anymore.
I'm doing human socialization here. I just,
Here, thank you.
I knew you'd be a friend of ours.
I'm on time, right on time.
I think it's perfect. It's good. It's positive spin. Positive feeling, yeah.
My daughter. That's a little bit wild, but I got that.
She's doing really good. She was doing more than 100%.
Was during
She's going to be devastated.
yeah, she's
But that puts her on the same line. Oh, Jen,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
where see what's next.
Yeah. That's just part of the journey, isn't it?
Which is hard.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know we're waiting for a handful of other people, but we want to make sure we stay on time. So, welcome everyone. I'm Jackie, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I feel like everybody knows that by now. I do want to invite you to help yourself to refreshments. So throughout the morning or when you're leaving, please take that because we don't need that many donuts and muffins at the office. And then I want to invite our sponsor up, Matt from Northland Area Federal Credit Union. He's going to give you a short little Northland commercial before we get into the program. So Matt, welcome.
Thank you. It's not really even a commercial. So when I saw Eric's presentation and what was going to be on, it really struck a chord because this is going to share a social media experience that we had recently. So, by the way, I'm the marketing director over there at Northland. Take a look at I watch all the social media and play a part in that with my team. And so we don't have a large Facebook following right now. It's I'm only a year in to this position, but I've been learning some things about the credit union industry and trends on social media. And one thing that we recently experienced is with the government shutdown that just, I should say just ended. It feels like it just ended. We not too long ago though, but we had the opportunity to come together, our executive team, right when that was going through the process, and decided to offer a shutdown loan, basically a low fee, I should say a low interest, no fee loan, no credit pulling or anything like that for our government employees. And we decided to do that for our government employees because we have about 47,000 members throughout our 15 locations. And so that was really cool that we could come together and do that. And what it did was help offer a lot of employees who were just quite not going to make it for the month. A lot of people these days live paycheck to paycheck, and so that would allow them to get this small loan. It was only $1,500, at the max. But one thing my eyes really opened up to were the reactions we were getting on social media. We were putting it out there just to get the word out there, and the organic reach was just exploding. I mean, we didn't do any boosting, we didn't do any sponsoring of the ads. We did a few newspaper ads, but the timing too certainly helped. It was just after it happened, and I couldn't keep up with the traffic we were having on our little Facebook page. We don't have a ton there, but in the thousands. I pulled up the stats afterwards, and by far our most popular post, people sharing it to family members. And so I just bring that up because it kind of touched a nerve with what you can see really, and I haven't seen Eric's presentation, but talking about
Nor have I, so it's okay.
okay.
I'm kidding.
getting away from the shiny things. So that really struck a chord with what was important to people, and so we also will see that in some other posts that we're posting. So it was just something I thought I would relate to what we're seeing. You know, when something like that really matters, and we're able to help quite a few members out too with that. So it was really helpful and just something I'm seeing. So, anyways, welcome. I look forward to the presentation, and we can all learn some more as well from professionals. So, all right.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Northland's been an incredible partner to us since they decided to move their headquarters here, so we're pretty excited about what the future holds with Northland in our community. So thank you, Matt. Seems to be everywhere all the time. I don't know how he does it. Just a couple housekeeping things. You guys probably are familiar, but the restrooms are down the hall. Go out the door to the right. They'll be on the left-hand side. If you need anything throughout the morning or the presentation, Ashley and Alicia are back there, and I'll be back there as well. Just ask us. We're happy to help with whatever you may need. Ashley and I and a couple of our ambassadors actually had the opportunity to hear Eric present at a conference that we were at, and we were both like furiously right. Well, first of all, he's kind of a fast talker.
That's an understatement.
Yes, it's an understatement for sure, but I am too, so I get it. But we're like furiously taking notes, and our ambassadors are writing stuff down, and I'm almost excited just to hear this stuff, some of this stuff twice, because I feel like I didn't catch it all the first time. But super helpful. This is like way beyond just the basic of this is Facebook, this is Twitter, whatever. Extremely helpful information. So we were pretty excited that he was able to come and join us and give you guys some valuable tools that you can take back to your businesses. So I guess with that being said, I'm just going to turn it over to Eric. He's from MLive, and I think he'll probably tell you a little bit more about himself. So thank you for joining us.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
That's okay for a room full of people. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna talk probably for about 45 minutes because I speak very quickly. So the 140 slides that you may have seen already, I'll go through them very quickly. And then I'm gonna take all of your questions because to Matt's point, I'd much rather talk about that stuff and how you work around or into things that you're currently dealing with than talk at you for 2 hours or whatever. So some level setting, just so everyone is aware, we're not here yet, right? So when we're talking about marketing in 2019, we're not talking about flying cars. We're talking about offering a loan that can help people and they gravitate towards it and share it amongst, I mean, how many people do you have on that Facebook page?
About 1,600.
1,600, and how many times was that thing shared?
Thousands. I had close to 2,000.
Right, so well beyond what the page should be touching, right? Because the news was good. So we're gonna talk a lot about that stuff and what you can do with those audiences once you've grown past what your page can serve. But quick introduction, my name is Eric Hultgren. I used to work in radio for a company that was formerly called Clear Channel Communications. It's now called iHeartMedia. I was there for 20 years. You can see for a while I didn't age, and then I aged terribly, so that happens. Then while I was at WSNX, my expertise was in music trends. So we were able to bring Ed Sheeran to Fifth Third Ballpark in Grand Rapids a day after he sold out Madison Square Garden. We were able to bring Justin Bieber to town, Macklemore, Run DMC, Matt Kearney, Mike Posner. And after about 20 years of that, I ran out of things to do, so I ended up at MLive. And when I was at MLive, they hired me originally to be the director of marketing. And my job was to get millennials to buy newspapers. Spoiler alert, that's not a thing that you can do for a living, right? So very quickly, I think 6 months into the job, I went back to what I was doing at iHeart when I left, which was running all of their social channels and their web and understanding the trends there and how to connect to audiences. And so today, we're gonna get to work talking about how we can do that with our social channels, whatever those are. But before we do that, I wanna talk about a kaleidoscope. And I wanna talk about a kaleidoscope because every single kaleidoscope is made the exact same way. Mirrors in the center, it's a cardboard tube, eyepiece on the end, and an end cap that's got fractals in it that you can look at the sky with, right? I share that with you because if I were to hand each one of you a kaleidoscope, some of you might see this, and some of you might see this out of the same piece of equipment. When we're trying to connect with our customers, they may all have the same devices, but they're looking at the world in a different way. So we have to understand how to talk to them and meet them where they are. Because when we're putting together marketing plans, we're going to do a thing, that thing is going to get us money, and then it gets out into the real world, and it gets touched by customers and friends and family, and every single one of them sees them in a different way, and the marketing campaign that you were trying to execute, maybe it doesn't go so well. And it feels like it's absolute chaos. And the thing about chaos is that it comes from the Greek, and I won't do a whole bunch of etymology this evening, or this morning, but we will talk about it for a second, because if you dig a little bit deeper and we talk about the Greek of chaos, it actually refers to the space between heaven and earth. And in that space, when you read about Greek mythology, that's actually where everything that we call the universe was created. So in that sense, the chaos is a very useful thing, and not a thing to be afraid of. And at this point, you're like, what the hell am I doing here, and why is he talking about Greek words? Well, bear with me for a second, because a lot of people look at the chaos of the technology that we're living in that changes the way that we get rides, changes the way that we interact with one another, changes the way that we film things, changes the way that we get our groceries, changes the way that we get everything, including groceries, changes the way that we drive, changes the way that we date, changes the way that we find our customers, changes the way we search, and changes the way we interact with our own technology. This chaos is how we connect with customers. And so for the next hour, we're going to be talking about changing the lens by which we see the digital world and awakening to a new way to look at it. When we talk about digital marketing, it's a $37 billion industry. It is far outpacing every traditional medium that you have ever heard of. By 3 years from now, it will double traditional mediums, so radio, TV, billboards, that sort of thing. And last year alone, this is what traffic looks like on the internet every 60 seconds. There's a lot going on, including people who are doing 1.1 million swipes every 60 seconds on Tinder, right? They're living their best life, I assume. So, when you look at this as a marketer, this can be overwhelming, and you think, well, how do I find all of these people? And what Matt set up very nicely is the fact that you don't have to find all of these people. We just need to find the right people. And in 2019, there are things that are non-negotiable when you're trying to deal with finding these customers. And those are things like making sure that you've got tracking on your website, both Google, AdWords, and Analytics, and the Facebook pixel. And if you've not experienced either one of those, this is the reason why you want to do that, because you run ads on Facebook, it sends them to a landing page, they make a conversion, they land on the thank you page and show up in your Facebook Analytics or your Google Analytics. And while you're following this trend line of what your customer is doing, you can understand where they're leaving. Did they leave at the landing page? Is the landing page either not interesting enough or not telling them what to do? Did they go to the conversion page and not get to the thank you page? Was the item too expensive? They didn't understand what they were buying. You can start to make sense of this. And if they get all the way to the end and show up in your analytics, you can run ads against those people. Matt, I'll send you this whole deck so you can record whatever you want, but I'll just so you can like enjoy the thing, guys. You will have access to everything that's up on the screen, so whatever notes you're taking, take extra notes.
Yeah, we'll send this out to
Yeah,
everybody.
they have it already, so you'll have it when this is over. So, and this is important, guys, because when you're running Facebook campaigns, the pixel is vital, specific to Facebook. 4.6 times more content views with that pixel, 3 times more purchases, and 43% lower cost per lead. So lower cost per customer versus not having it in there. You can still run, and I'll show you here in a little bit, you can still run ads that are pretty gnarly on Facebook without the pixel. But what the pixel allows you to do is go past the click. Because when people click on your website, that really tells you nothing. You actually have to know where they go and why they go there. And one of the things that, again, it's almost like I planted Matt here. One of the things that he highlights is this idea of, I don't have enough people on my Facebook page. I don't have enough followers on Instagram. I don't know what I'm doing with Twitter. I don't have enough people following me on LinkedIn. This will never work. And I will tell you that that's not necessarily the truth. And here's an example. So in December, Whopper Burger King did this thing called the Whopper Detour. And if you don't know what it is, this is a quick primer. Essentially, you had to download the Burger King app. So you download their app, you drive your car to a McDonald's, get within 600 feet, and the app will serve you a coupon for a 1-cent Whopper. Then you stay in said car and go pick it up at a Burger King. And they called it the Whopper Detour. So they did it for 10 days. And the thing about this is when you're Burger King and competing with McDonald's, McDonald's has 14,037 stores in the United States. Burger King has right around 6,000. So already there's a problem with this math because there aren't enough Burger Kings for this app to work, because there's twice as many places for people to run into a McDonald's and not be able to get the 1-cent Whopper. And in Q3 of last year, the company that owns Burger King and Tim Hortons missed their goal in Q3. In Q4, they ended up missing their goal, and overall, they ended up flat on the year, which is not where you want to be. And partially, it's because you're playing the wrong game, because when you consider a brand like McDonald's, it really has very little anymore with selling hamburgers. McDonald's is the largest toy distributor on the planet. McDonald's is one of the largest fast food real estate companies. McDonald's had a great year last year. McDonald's also has an index, an economic index based on the Big Mac. So you can think how great your country's economic threshold is by the price of a Big Mac in said country. There is no Whopper equivalent. And if we go back to 2008, you can see that the battle between these two, while global sales not very close, the battle was much closer. It was 1 and 2. We were talking about burgers at the top of quick service restaurants, or QSR. We go 10 years later, it's a much different problem. In fact, McDonald's biggest issue is with things that aren't even on this list. They're worried about Dunkin' Donuts. They just launched donut fries to compete with Dunkin' Donuts. And when you think about the $9 million in sales versus $37 million in sales, that seems like an odd thing, but they know that consumers' tastes are changing and people want more choice. And so they're not even competing with Burger King, but Burger King is trying to compete with them. And then this stuff happens. And if you're a marketing director, this is your nightmare scenario, that your customer gets charged $1,000 for his 1-cent Whopper. And in West Michigan, when we started talking about this on the MLive Media Group page, we started to get these messages that the app didn't work. I think this is a terrible marketing strategy. Here's a guy who sent me a video of him getting in an argument with the manager about the 1-cent Whopper because I don't know how many of you in here work in fast food in any way, shape, or form, but they're owned by franchisees, and this franchisee didn't want to participate. So they went to McDonald's, got the coupon, went to the Burger King that said that they ordered it, and that Burger King said, well, we're not doing the 1-cent Whopper. All bad customer service. And at this point, you're probably thinking, well, I know, but have you seen what Wendy's does on Twitter? They troll everybody. It's hilarious, right? On National Roasting Day, they trolled everybody that was following them and told them how terrible their lives were and all these very funny, snarky things on Twitter. But if you go to Twitter and go one over, instead of just their tweets, go to tweets and replies, this is their entire account. And if you can't see this in the back, every single one of these is, oh, I'm really sorry, that's not how our customer service is supposed to work. I'm sorry, that's not really what should have happened. DM me and we'll fix it. I'm sorry that that happened like that. What can we do to fix it? It's okay, it's right there in the name. We'll DM you the address and fix whatever happened to you. This shows that while you might be funny on Twitter, you're not actually making money off being funny on Twitter. You're making money by selling hamburgers, which doesn't seem to be going very well. And so the goal here, guys, is never to get the most amount of people to your page, because that's probably not going to help you. The goal here is to get the right people to your page and make them customers for life. And one of the ways you can do that is with Joseph Campbell's A Hero's Journey. And once you start to understand the hero's journey, what that does is ruin every single movie, TV show, or book you will read there and after, because you'll know how all of them end. And I'm not sure that that's what Joseph Campbell meant when he wrote this book, but what it does is explain essentially how fiction works. And when you layer that on top of marketing campaigns, it looks like this. And a very quick way to go through it is we'll use Star Wars. So to do a hero's journey, we would pick Luke Skywalker, who has a problem with the Empire. He meets a guide in either Obi-Wan or Yoda. They give him a plan, call him to action, and he either blows up the Death Star or Darth Vader remains in power. That's how the hero journey works. Where brands fall into problems is that instead of being here, because this is where you should be, they want to be the hero instead of the guide. And so, again, to pick on Matt for a second, that's exactly what they did. Doing that loan puts them here, not here, right? If Matt took all of that and turned that into a marketing campaign about how cool they were, look, we're the heroes of the community, that's probably going to backfire, because all of the organic reach that they got from doing the right thing, they just need to let the customers continue to sit in that hero spot and tell that story over and over again, because I guarantee you, without even knowing anything about that case study, I guarantee you there are people whose lives you changed by that simple gesture of doing those loans. They're doing all that work for you. Because in marketing, we want our customers to feel like superheroes, because that's how they stick around. And in an Amazon world where every one of us is threatened by whatever new thing Amazon is trying to do, this is how you win. And if you were to take, we're in a community college, if you were to take a marketing class, it's likely it would start with this, which is either known as a marketing funnel or a sales funnel. And the AIDA model was actually invented in 1921. And it was developed by a guy who wanted to sell bonds. And this is how he was going to do it. They actually asked him to write a book, so he did, and he created this model. This is a model, guys, before there was television. This is a model that was right around the point that newspapers were suing radio stations, because when radio came onto the scene, all they did to fill the hours and hours of content that they had to do was they went and bought the newspaper and sat in a studio and read it. And so the newspapers, in what's known as the Biltmore Agreement, sued radio stations saying that they were stealing their content. This is right around the time that this AIDA model shows up, a model that we haven't changed in nearly 100 years. There are still people teaching this model today. Starts at the top, right? So how it works is it starts at the top and it goes down in a linear fashion to either a sale or they become advocates of your brand. Anybody who spent 4 minutes on Facebook or Instagram knows that this never happens ever. They don't jump into the top of the funnel and go all the way down quietly to the sale and start all over. It looks more like this story I'm about to tell you. So these 3 gentlemen work with me at MLive and also specialize in Christmas sweaters. And they were at a brewery in Grand Rapids called Founders. And this particular evening, there was a band playing, as you can see in the background. And they got there late, and so they were standing, I should say, behind a gentleman who was sitting, and he had his phone on him. And midway through one of the songs, he takes his phone up, and he's flipping through Instagram. I know, that's terrible, right? But he's flipping through Instagram, and he gets served an ad on Instagram for a heated jacket. And he looks at it for a little bit, and he scrolls for Instagram for 1 more minute, and then he gets out of Instagram and goes to their Facebook page. And he scrolls around on their Facebook page, and he puts his phone back in his pocket, and he takes a sip of beer and watches more of the band. Pulls his phone back out. Now he's on Amazon, and he's price shopping heated jackets. Now he's on Walmart, price shopping those heated jackets. Puts his phone back in his pocket and watches a little bit more. Takes his phone back out and goes to Instagram for a little bit, and then decides that he doesn't want to do that anymore, and goes directly to the brand's website. Looks again at the heated jacket. Puts it back in his pocket. 2 more songs go by. He orders another beer. Takes his phone back out and buys a heated jacket on Amazon. That's who you're trying to find. This will never find that guy. He didn't interact with any ad. He didn't go through any funnel. He did it off of an Instagram post that he didn't click on. Scrolled right by it and did some other thing. He came right in here. So if you looked at your website analytics, you'd be like, who the hell is this guy who just bought a jacket? Because I know nothing about him. And that's the toughest part about the way in which consumers are interacting with social media, is that they don't do it by walking into Big B and pointing at the menu and ordering the coffee and leaving quietly while leaving a data trail of their Big B card. That's this. That's not what happens on your social page, right? There are people that saw Matt's post that will never interact with that credit union ever because they're not in this state. But they'll remember the story and they'll probably tell it. And they might tell it enough times that somebody in the state of Michigan runs into one of your credit unions and goes, hey, I heard about that thing you did for my cousin's brother's nephew's uncle's baby, right? That's what we're talking about, which makes this not very reliable. And it should look more like this. This is something known as the marketing life cycle. All the same steps as the marketing funnel, but it works much better because they're intertwined and your customer can come in on any one of these paths that you want. You still have awareness, you still have interest and intent, so they liked what you were doing and took an action on some piece of content that you were dealing with. They made a decision, bought something, and became loyal to the product. They told people about it over and over and over again. Not in a linear fashion, because in some cases, if we're not even talking about the heated jacket guy, in some cases, you might watch, let's say, a Super Bowl commercial about a car, but you're not in the market for a car. But for that Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, according to that car dealership or that car brand, you are. So you jumped in here because you saw a TV commercial and stayed here, and then you left. And then a year later, you come back in. And that's very difficult to track when we're trying to think that they just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so let's talk about the platforms themselves, and we'll start with Facebook. It's obviously, by platform, the biggest usage. And so one of the questions I get everywhere that I go, in every single room that I go into, is what platforms with an S should I be on? And the answer to that is you should be on as many as you can manage, but you should start with one and get good at it. And I'll use Reebok as an example. Excuse me. In 2014, Reebok had 813 social media accounts across all of the platforms, right? One for shorts, one for shoes, one for, think about it, they had it. And somebody in their marketing department started to realize that Instagram was the place for lifestyle brands. Instagram was the place for the lifestyle that Reebok was trying to embrace. And so at the time, Ronda Rousey was in the UFC and she was the hottest thing on the planet. And so they created a marketing campaign around Ronda Rousey and they launched it on Instagram and saw a huge growth on Instagram, not only in people coming to their platform, but people coming from that platform and then jumping into sales because they were able to track how those people got back into their website and stuff like that. And they focused all their energy on a single platform to shift sales. And so if a global brand like Reebok understands that they should have a Facebook page, but have a priority, so should you. So I'm all for if you want to jump on all of these and grab your assets. But I have yet to, in the 2 years I've traveled the state of Michigan, I have yet to find anybody in any one of these rooms who can tweet 120 times a day, 365 days a year to make an impact on Twitter. Because that's what you need to do. So I will say, sure, grab that. But do I really want to hear, and I promise I'll leave you alone eventually, right? Do I really want to hear from a credit union on Twitter? Is that really what I want to do as a consumer? And what does a credit union have to say 120 times that would be interesting? Likely nothing, right? But here and here, I bet they have a story to tell. Maybe here, if like some banks have, there's a bank I work with on the west side of the state that has a card specific to 12-year-olds, right, to teach them things about money. Well, they're not going to find 12-year-olds on Facebook. They're going to find them here. So it depends on what you're trying to do, but I would say pick one, be good at it. And you want to do that because this year, there is more media watched on this device than this device. I'll say that one more time. There's more media watched on this device than on this device. And so I don't know who is in this room or what you guys do for a media mix, but I would be really, really careful to just do one of the traditional mediums without a digital component. That's not to say that TV doesn't work, or billboards don't work, or newspaper doesn't work, or radio doesn't work. But if you just do one of those things, if I just do billboards, you are missing a much bigger picture because most of your customers are here. In fact, specific to billboards, 48% of people in the United States, while they drive, they're on this, right? I mean, that's not good news, but it certainly should tell you that half the people driving aren't seeing your billboard. Okay, so in January 3rd of this year, a company called BuzzSumo released the findings of this insane study they did. They studied 800,000 Facebook brand pages that were successful based on a bunch of metrics that they decided. So 800,000 pages. And they studied them to give this sort of best practices. And I'm about to share those best practices with you with a caveat. Understand that to be great in this space, you've got to experiment a lot. And so while these are best practices, and one of them I will tell you has been true for more than 5 years, so this one might be the thing that you should do, you need to experiment. Because if it tells you to post at this hour of the day, you might get better traction if you do it at a different time. And you're not going to know that if you don't test that stuff out. So I will show these to you with the understanding that you might be one of the outliers, and there were plenty of outliers in the study, but they need to put some sort of semblance of the study together, which gets you this data, okay? So the best format, which if you've done this for a minute, should be no duh, it's video. Facebook loves video. I would argue that Instagram doesn't really love video. Instagram stories might, but Instagram itself doesn't love video, but Facebook does. The one thing I want to bring to your attention is links is towards the bottom of this graph. So if you are a Facebook page that all you do is grab links off the internet and share them on your page, Facebook is not a fan of you because Facebook wants the users to stay on the platform. So if you're creating your own content and putting it native to Facebook, meaning in a language that Facebook speaks, that's what they want you to do. Best time to post. Again, this seems a bit obvious, especially if you're any sort of brand that's trying to reach adults. Well, as they put the kids to bed and they're trying to unwind for the day, that starts around 7 o'clock and goes probably till midnight, maybe even 1 a.m. Peaks a little bit when they take a break from work at 9 a.m. But again, you might find that posting your stuff at 5 o'clock in the morning is much better for your brand. This gives you a holistic look about how people are using brand pages, but is not a hard and fast rule. But a great place to start when you're looking at averages. So if you want to post stuff, I would post it at night and see what happens. But remember, the reason I say I'm spending so much time in this slide is because when you look at what happens on Facebook specifically, it's not showing you stuff in order. It's showing you stuff by velocity. What are the things that you should be interested in that you might have missed that are doing really, really well? So it doesn't actually matter if Eric posts something at 9 p.m. If that thing gets 20,000 views, you're going to see it the next day at 9 a.m. So I showed this to you to go, play with these times, but understand since we're out of sync, we're asynchronous to an actual clock, these times are a little bit relative. Optimal number of characters. I will tell you this, 0 people click on your post when it says more, and no one reads the more part, even if it's the best part of the post. We want to stay here, which is why when we talk about video, video is a great way to stay there. The post can be one sentence, the video can handle the rest of it. The blog post can handle the rest of it. The landing page can handle the rest of it. We need to get better at writing teases to get them to move into where we want to put them. We don't want to put everything in the post. Think about storytelling. Great book that you've read, a great movie that you've watched, a Netflix series that you watched in one evening. They didn't tell you who murdered the main character in the first episode, unless it's How to Get Away with Murder, which is the basis of the show. But outside of that show, right, they don't tell you that at the beginning because that would be doing this. hey, we're about to do 9 episodes of the show. This is Ashley. She's going to get killed by Jimmy. Jimmy's going to do it because he's jealous of John. And right, they wouldn't do that because that wouldn't be interesting. We want to be interesting. We want to get better at telling stories, gathering a community around those stories, and giving them something of value every single time we post. The other thing that I will tell you is you don't need to post every day. You don't need to post every day. If you are a brand, your customers don't want to hear from you every day. They want to hear from you when you have something to say. Because if you post every day, you're getting into the habit of just posting to post. And that's not good storytelling. We want to be good storytellers, so we want to post when we have something to say. And when you get in the habit of getting great at telling stories, then you get to post every single day because you're putting out so many stories you don't know what to do with them. That's the way that you want to do it. You don't want to wake up and go, I'm starting a Facebook page today on February 21st, and I'm going to post every single day. Because you probably don't have a plan to post every single day. And without a plan, you end up stuck in posting garbage. And I don't have the slides in this presentation, but last year I was running around with this bunch of slides from my former radio station. Former radio station has 500,000 followers on their page. And they are mandated by iHeartMedia to post every 60 minutes. And in March of 2018, I pulled every post for 72 hours because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And for 72 hours, as they posted every 60 minutes, for 72 hours, they didn't get a like, they didn't get a share, they didn't get a comment for 3 days with 500,000 human beings looking at the page or the ability to look at the page. And so, no, you don't need the biggest audience in the world, and no, you don't need to post every day if you don't have something to say, because that will just drive them away. And I have no idea, because I don't have access to the analytics anymore, I don't know how long it took them to get back from 0 after 72 hours to get people to consume content again. Because the other thing that works is, to go back to Matt real quick, when he's got that many people paying attention, the post after the loans also outperformed what it would have done on its own, because all of those people, the algorithm is going, all these people are here. Let's show them whatever it was. Let's show them this thing and see what happens. Same works the opposite direction. If you have 0 engagement for a week, you've got to do something huge to get that engagement back up. Best day to post, Sunday and then Saturday. I have been talking about this, guys, for 6 years. Because this has nothing to do with Facebook, this has to do with human condition. And human condition goes like this. Everybody in this room, Monday through Friday, tends to get up at the same time. They tend to have the same thing for breakfast. They buy coffee from the same place. They drive to work in the same way. They listen to the same radio station, podcast, or music. They sit down at the same place in their office. They take lunch at the same time. They're very habitual. The only time we change our habits is on holidays and weekends. And so if you want to find new customers, the best way to intercept them is on holidays and weekends. And you'll find that if you're the brand who wants to put something up on Christmas Day that is compelling and doesn't ask to sell for anything, right? You're just trying to engage with people, you'll see that thing outperform because everybody else takes it off. In fact, the last 2 weeks of the year, if you're in marketing, if you're an agency, if you're a credit union, if you're a manufacturer, everybody's gone for those last 2 weeks. You've got 2 weeks to yourself to create all the content that you want because no one is doing anything. And everybody knows for those 2 weeks, you hang out with your family for about 60 minutes and you're tired of them. You want to do something else. You're on your phone, you're watching Netflix, you're doing whatever. So you've got 2 weeks that look like this, that you can play around with. Same thing at Thanksgiving. But Saturdays and Sundays are a great place to not only put content, but to test content. If you've never done video, try it on Saturday or Sunday. See what happens when you expose it to a new audience. And this was the most shocking part of the study. So remember, we're talking about 800,000 Facebook pages. The optimal video length for Facebook is 4 minutes. And I think if you've been watching a lot of social stuff, we spend a lot of time telling you it should be this. You should do 15-second videos on Facebook, 30-second videos. Have you tried 6-second videos on Facebook? You should do that. It's actually here. When you break it down to seconds, which I think I have here, it's actually 3.5 minutes is the ideal time by a long shot. And that's fascinating to me. It's fascinating for a couple of reasons, because when we get in, we're going to talk a little bit about how to do content at scale. And when you talk about doing content at scale, well, if this is what we're talking about, then I can do a 15-minute video on YouTube about how to get a mortgage, right? And then I can do a 3.5-minute version on Facebook. And then I can do a 1-image power statement on Instagram about how I know how to get you a mortgage in 15 minutes, right? Now that's one piece of content that's on 3 platforms in 3 different formats. All because we know that we can tell a little bit longer story on Facebook than we thought we could. So let's talk about Instagram a little bit. Users by age last year, 25-34 is the biggest segment, and much like every innovation curve, which is what happens to technology, it continues to age up. And when this gets down to here, all of these people will go someplace else. You know, when your grandmother is killing it on Instagram, you're gonna go find something else to do, right? Because it's no longer cool. But right this second, Instagram is the most interesting platform in the social space. They hit 1 billion active users in June, which is a huge number. And this year, I decided to play in the space a little bit more and mess around with what's known as the grid. So if you go to your platform, your account, you will see your images. And when you pick 9 of them, it's a grid. When you do the best 9 at the end of the year, that's a grid. So what I wanted to do, because prior to this, if you look at my Instagram account, it's this hodgepodge of whatever the hell I wanted to put up there, right? It's my dog, it's a burrito, it's a keynote, it's like, there's no storytelling to it. So what I wanted to do starting in January is I wanted to put up a photo every single day, and I wanted it to be different than what I do for my regular life. So all of it is outdoor. And so I've been doing this consistently for almost 2 months, taking photos, editing photos, and getting them so that when you go to my grid, it looks like this. And when you look at that grid and compare it to what I do on LinkedIn or what I do on Facebook, it looks vastly different. And it's been huge. So the engagement on that page has gone up 122%. I've spent $0 on Instagram, simply by telling a different story. Nat Geo is doing the same thing. Their revenue last year went up 80%. And they topped 100 million Instagram followers. And they're not running ads, guys, they're Nat Geo. So what they do is they partner with Samsung. So they take people who are taking photos on Samsung products or iPhone products or Canon products and put those images up, or they take them themselves and get all of the engagement, which runs back to the organic push to Samsung or Canon or Sony or whatever. So they're putting up stuff that customers actually want to see and making revenue on the back end of that. And when we talk about Instagram, it's got 3 arms, essentially, 2.5 really. You've got the news feed, which we just showed you, right? You've got Instagram stories, and then you've got something called IGTV. And while IGTV is Instagram stories in a longer form, upwards of an hour, most people are not making new content on Instagram TV. In fact, most people are just repurposing stories in a longer form, and it really hasn't taken off in the same way that Facebook stories really haven't taken off. So if you're dealing with Instagram, we're essentially talking about the feed and stories. And if you're buying ads, it's severely underpriced. So in 2015, it was, call it nearly $7 to get 1,000 people to look at an ad. Last year, it was $4.91. And that rarely happens. In fact, I don't actually know when it's ever happened in technology where something gets more popular and its ad platform gets cheaper. And so Instagram is something I've been spending a lot of time looking at because I think it's got a huge potential for, number one, how inexpensive it is, and number two, by making one tweak to your page and telling a different story than the brand might normally, still on brand. I like to be outside. It's not like I'm doing something that's discongruous to what I normally do. It just looks different than everything else, can get you a lot. And if you look at engagement, it outperforms Facebook and Twitter by an insurmountable level. right? So if you can't see this in the back, on Twitter, Donald Trump has 103 million interactions on Twitter. The #1 account, GoFund the World, has 812 million interactions on Instagram. And so if you are thinking of starting another account or focusing on a different part of your business, Instagram is one that's super interesting to me. Specifically Instagram stories, because we're getting into this new era of vertical storytelling. And for a long time, in fact, 100 and some odd years, we've told stories this way or this way. And so vertical storytelling is very difficult for brands because we don't necessarily know how to do that. And what do I mean by that? Well, because if you watch most people's Instagram stories, what is it? Hey, I'm doing an Instagram story because I don't really know how to deal with the aspect ratio when I go like this to like this. So it's just me. This is difficult. This is not. You've got all of this extra space to build depth of field, all of this extra space to add other things. But we've been telling vertical storytelling forever. If you think about a modern arcade, if there were such a thing, you can see it's vertical storytelling. You can see that most of the technology that we take for granted in an iPhone started in some way, shape, or form by looking at these pieces of equipment and going, how can we make something that's visually appealing and goes vertically? And you can see some examples here of some great vertical storytelling. Normally on Instagram, this is what this photo would look like. But when you stretch it out, it tells a different story. You can see the city in the background that is busy. They're kind of taking time out of their day. This one I like because the book stretches out into the harbor, right? You get a sense of the creativity of what this person is working on. Vertical storytelling is a very powerful medium if you can shift, again, the lens by which you tell stories. But this is a place where a lot of brands struggle, which is important because in Instagram stories, it gives you an opportunity to tell kind of the less veneered version of your brand, the behind the scenes stuff, what it takes to put on a whatever morning it is, it's Thursday morning, right? Thursday morning learning for the chamber. What did they do this morning before we got here? They can put that stuff on Instagram stories and it disappears after 24 hours. So while we're telling these stories, the thing that we need to focus on is telling stories that your customer actually cares about. When we go back to the hero's journey, again, a lot of brands want to tell stories that they care about. And then they meet monthly for their KPI meetings or their digital marketing meetings, and they go, how did the thing that we wanted to do? We go, it did all right, because we were telling stories that we cared about, not stories that the customer cared about. This past fall, I was in Grand Rapids speaking at a group of realtors. And what I like to do if I have the opportunity is I like to get a list of the people who are showing up. And I go to their social channels and I stalk them a little bit and see what they're posting and how they're using the platform and what things they could be doing better. And I work them into the talk because I want to show them how they could take what is already working for them and elevate it. One of the things I did a couple years back is I was doing a talk about how to sell on LinkedIn. And this particular organization was kind enough to give me the list of every employee that they had. And I went on LinkedIn and I found every single one of them. And I wrote, there's 312 of them. And I wrote all 300 of them, each individual messages. If they had blog posts on their LinkedIn page, I read every single one of them. And I said, what's your name? Ian. Ian. So I wrote and I said, hey Ian, I see that you adopt dogs with your wife. That's super cool. I'm going to be talking about social media in January. If you have any questions, I'd love for you to give me some feedback so I can make sure that I answer your question when I show up on January 9th. And I did that 312 times. 6 of those employees responded. Right. Wow. Except, remember, I'm trying to teach them how to sell on LinkedIn. 6 responded, including the president of the company. So the point of the story to them was, I won. I got to the president, right? It took me 312 times to do that, but I got to talk to him. It took me an hour to read those blog posts. 60 minutes of work, and I got to the president. And I had an authentic conversation with this guy that if I was selling, they were selling printers. If I was selling printers, I had an in, right? So same with these guys. I went and I saw that every single one of them shared this article. Grand Rapids is the 7th best mid-sized city for home buyers. All of them just link, 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 100 and some odd times. Now, the only person that benefits from you doing that, this is the Grand Rapids Business Journal, is the Grand Rapids Business Journal, because you're driving all of that traffic to their article that they can build ads on and then do whatever. So I said to them, I said, look, one of the struggles you have if you're a realtor of one or a small team is you don't know how to make content at scale. So you don't make anything. It's way too hard to make stuff, so I'm just gonna do none of it. I'm just gonna share links and figure out how to noodle my way through Facebook. And I went in and I said, look, you guys should share this article. But what I would do is I would take my phone and I would wander through the streets of Grand Rapids and I would do a 60 or 90-second video about what I love about Grand Rapids. And while I'm filming, I'll take 5 different photos of 5 different neighborhoods in Grand Rapids and I'll put it in a carousel on Instagram. And while I'm doing that, I'll go to Google Maps and I'll mark the 7 hottest neighborhoods in Grand Rapids that you should be looking at homes if you read this article. And then I'm going to put that on my blog with an explanation of every single neighborhood and who it's for. Again, I took an hour's worth of work and made 5 pieces of content. And it works 100% of the time. So this is from the Michigan's Best page, which is where we've got a team of people that go out and celebrate the food and beverage in Michigan and travel and all that sort of stuff. And every time we create a new piece of content, the metrics go up. And I share this for you not as a humble brag. I share this for you because if you've got to report up to C-level executives with some sort of reporting for what your social is doing, whoever that is, you have to understand what these things are telling you. Well, I know from September 5 to September 11th, we didn't put any videos out. And so while that's a red arrow down, that says we're down 37% in video view, I didn't make any. So if I just send this to my boss, what is he going to do? He's going to go, what the hell happened here and what the hell happened here? But if I can get in front of him or give him a memo that says, hey, look, we didn't put up any videos and still got 32,000 views, that's a much better story. And so as we get deeper into Facebook and the analytics, this is the stuff that you want to start paying attention to. The other thing that you want to start paying attention to is what stuff am I going to boost? This is before we make ads. Because we know that Facebook is a pay-to-play space unless you have something that lights on fire in a way that was unexpected. So of these, which one am I going to boost? Well, if I'm just looking at reach, the amount of people that it touched, well, clearly, I'm going to do the one at the bottom. It's 40,000 people were reached by that video. Except, it only had 8% engagement. And for this video play, I know what this is. It's a 30-second video that's drone footage of some part of Michigan. So it's probably going to continue to do this on its own, and we're going to leave that engagement alone. What's more interesting is this page seems to be really into Michigan's Best Barbecue, because we only have 1,000 reach, but 11% of those people are doing something on the page with it. So this is where I'm putting the money, because this data is telling me that I can actually make something happen with this piece of content because it's got the highest amount of engagement and I want to reward that. And so when you're thinking about boosting something, the thing that I always say is put the piece of content up and leave it alone for a minute. See what the algorithm is going to do with it. And I say that because no amount of money can help, pardon my French, no amount of money can help shitty content. If your stuff is terrible, it doesn't matter how much you spend, you're not going to reach the people you want to reach. So we want to put it up and wait and see what happens. And then when we see stuff like this, well, now we're going to put some money behind it and see where we go. Because ultimately, if all we pay attention to are vanity metrics, we're going to kill our brain. Because we don't actually care about how many people consumed that loan post. It's impressive. It's what we do after that matters. What was the plan after with all of that traffic that we had going on, right? How are we going to capture some of those stories? Can we reach out to some of the people whose lives we impacted and get them to come in and do a 30-second testimonial about how this thing saved my life? And I think a larger, more corporate bank wouldn't have done this for me. But I belong to a credit union because they actually care about the, right? Like, that's the narrative I would tell with that story. Because we've got some vanity metrics to lean into to tell a great story, to then turn around and turn it into a much larger campaign. And Facebook will even back this up, right? 1% of your fans are your consumers. So again, the number of people on your page doesn't matter. That 1% who's actually consuming what you sell is what matters. And so we've got to make sure that we're measuring the right thing. And clicks, as I said earlier, not a great proxy for the results that you want to get. We got to tell a better story. Because just focusing on the clicks ends up being more expensive. And so if you've got the pixel, you can lower that cost. If you've got content up that isn't getting people to just click for the sake of clicking, you can lower your cost dramatically. And here's one of the ways you can do it, right? So we're going to jump into the ad manager in case none of you have seen it. This is the ad manager. And when you click on this piece over here, it's called the hamburger. The first thing we're going to do is build an audience. So we're going to go over to assets and we're going to click on audiences. And again, you have access to this. You can watch it as many times as you want to. We're going to build what's called a custom audience. Now we have no pixel on this, so we're going to go to the bottom to engagement, and we're going to pick a video that's running on our website, or on our Facebook page. It's hard to see back there, but I'm going to pick people who have watched 25% of the video, because 3-second video views, again, to talk about vanity metrics, 3-second video views is just them scrolling through their newsfeed. They didn't watch any of it. So I want somebody to watch 25% of this video, and they've done so in the last month. So I'm going to call it the tech blog audience because that's what the piece of video is. And it's going to create a custom audience. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called a lookalike audience. And a lookalike audience is everybody who should have watched the video I just selected but don't know I exist. So I'm going to pick the United States, and I'm going to pick 10% of the United States population that looks like they would have enjoyed this tech blog video. And you might be thinking at this point, that seems like a lot of people. It is a lot of people. But we're not going to use all of those people. I picked 10% because I want the biggest part, to go back to the funnel that we don't like, I want the biggest part of that funnel that I can then geographically boil down to Alpena, to Grand Rapids, to Lansing, to Traverse City, to wherever, right? So we build one audience, which is the actual people who have watched the piece of content, and then we allow Facebook to go out and find people who look like that audience. Then I'm going to show you how to build an ad that uses both of those. Because what I'm trying to do in this particular case is I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to find people who don't know about Michigan's Best. People who watched 25% of that video, and then I'm going to even run another segment of people who watched half the video. So these guys are red hot. They have watched 2 minutes of the 4-minute video. We want to reward them by putting them into a different part of the marketing funnel, again, to use there's no better phrase, but we're going to put them into a different part of our marketing set and serve them different ads that reward them for being high consumers. We want to push these guys down here and these guys into here, right? And so here's how we're going to do that. Back into the ad manager, and now we're just going to make an ad. So there are 3 levels to the ad manager if you haven't used it. It's campaign level, ad set level, and ad. So the campaign is, again, the large umbrella by which all of the stuff runs under. You can run multiple ad sets, so multiple audiences in that campaign, and multiple pieces of creative, which we'll talk about here in a second. So we go in here, and we're going to pick budget optimization for this particular ad, and we're going to run $10 a day. And what budget optimization does at the campaign level is takes every piece of creative that we're going to run in this campaign and find out where it's going to perform the best and reward the pieces of creative that perform the best and tamp down the ones that don't. Okay, so here we're picking the audiences. We picked the lookalike and the video audience of the tech blog, and now we're going to put a geo. So we're going to pick the state of Michigan, and we're going to use the Michigan's Best page. We'll go in and we'll pick a thumbnail image, and we'll write something about what I'm doing in the technology space. And I know I'm going super fast, but I'll answer any questions that you want when this is all done. So we're going to fill out the text part, which shows up here. Again, I don't want it to say more because no one will click on it. The website URL. prior to this, you had to use Google's UTM builder to track it, but they actually have a tracker inside of Facebook now. So I can assign some different sets of data that will show up in my Google Analytics and tell me where this traffic came from. So campaign source, Facebook, campaign medium, I'm going to call it Facebook feed because I don't actually know where it's going to serve to. It's for the tech blog, and I'm using a photo, so I'm just calling it image, and I hit apply. So that when I look inside of my Google Analytics, I'll be able to know how many people came from this ad. Give it a headline. And then the news feed description is what shows up underneath the headline and underneath the photo. And in this video, I don't do this, but over here, if you're in the front, you can probably see it, but over here, it's got 16 instances of where it's going to show up. You can click through and see what the ad is going to look like in every single one of those instances and delete the ones that you don't think it's going to look great in. One of the things about Facebook and Instagram is you want to make sure that your creative matches the native language of those platforms. So if Facebook allows you to do horizontal storytelling, you want a horizontal image. Instagram is a square, so 1200 by 1200, so you want a different image to serve on Instagram. We'll hit publish here, and then as soon as it renders, we'll be done. So that's very quickly how you build two audiences and create an ad around it. In this case, the best practice is to do way more than one piece of creative. The number one thing I hear a lot about is people who tell me that Facebook ads don't work. And a lot of those people will tell you that because they're only running one piece of creative. And so the algorithm has nothing else to pick from. And we want to give it more things to pick from, especially when we're using things like automatic placements. So this is where you let Facebook optimize your ad to wherever it thinks it will work best. Facebook, Instagram, Inside Messenger, or what's known as the Audience Network. The Audience Network is Facebook's version of the Google ecosystem. So this will serve on websites. And it's defaulted to automatic placements when you create ads, but you can go in and pick whatever you want to do. If you just want to do Instagram ads or you just want to do a Messenger ad, you can do all of that stuff. But starting out, this is a great way to get an understanding because when you look at the analytics, you'll be able to see how automatic placements have helped you, right? So this is direct from Facebook showing one campaign run in two different ways. So manual placements, I'm manually putting stuff on Instagram and Facebook and Messenger, and then the lowered cost by letting it automate itself. This is a great place to start, but again, you are probably going to, if you get into this and you dive really deep, you'll have chances or instances where you only want to run Facebook ads, or you only want to run Instagram story ads, and in that case, you can't use automatic placements. Okay, very quickly, I want to touch on LinkedIn because they made some updates last week that I want to share with you. One of them is that they're rolling out LinkedIn Live, which scares me a little bit, but I hope people end up using it correctly. It scares me a little bit because if any of you spend time on LinkedIn, you know what your InMail looks like, and I fear this will be the video equivalent of InMail. It'll be just people shilling their SaaS products or whatever, however you can lower cost per click, whatever they're going to be doing. However, if you're a manufacturer or you're in B2B space and you didn't think Facebook Live was going to work for you, I think this could be super powerful to connect to businesses. You know, if you're, I don't know, a chamber of commerce and you wanted to run live video of your lunch and learns on your LinkedIn page, like that's a very powerful way to connect to businesses who aren't already members. The other thing they launched is this thing called content suggestion. And if you're just getting started putting content on LinkedIn, the quick cheat is that you can just share it from here. But you can take these content suggestions and you can look at it in three different ways. You can look at it at your page followers. You can look at it at employees. MLive has less than 300 employees, so there's going to be no data. Or you can look at it by LinkedIn members and pick some parameters. So pick marketing and advertising. So all LinkedIn members, what are they reading about? Well, they're clearly reading about the Fire Festival and some other stuff. And like I said, the cheat here is you can just hit share and it'll show up on your business page. And that's awesome. But the level up version of this is if I know that they're talking about the Fire Festival and the deck, the pitch deck that came out for the Fire Festival, what I would probably want to do is create my own piece of content that has my take on the Fire Festival. I don't know why I was doing that, right? On my own take on the Fire Festival and share that to my audience. Because if I know that they're already into it, I want to share that with my own voice so that I become the de facto, for this audience, I become the de facto voice for what they're doing. The other thing that they updated were the analytics, which still suck compared to what you can see on Facebook and Instagram, but it's better than it was. Perhaps the most robust part of this is it now parses your data. Okay, it actually parses your data. I want to show you this one more time because this is probably the most impactful. This metric is the most impactful because it parses your data between LinkedIn users that use your page on a desktop and LinkedIn users that use your page on a mobile. And so what you might find is people do check your page on the weekend, but it's from a mobile device. So what content should I be creating on the weekends that's mobile optimized for LinkedIn? 3 real quick things I wanted to update you. The Instagram Live, the LinkedIn Live though, is the one that I think is the biggest bellwether for that platform. Because again, LinkedIn is one of these platforms that's woefully behind technologically from all of the other platforms. However, again, if you have not been able to connect with Facebook Live to your audience, this might be a better way to do that. I don't know that better late than never is a great way to run a business, but now that they're owned by Microsoft, that seems to be what they're doing, right? So I promised we would talk about creative because it's important. And we are working with a customer on the west side of the state called Michigan Progressive Health. And they are a ketamine clinic. So what they do is they treat severe depression with ketamine. In order to get treated by them, you have to have severe depression, you have to have failed off of 3 other medications, and have $4,500 cash because insurance doesn't cover it. If anyone in this room has run Facebook ads, you know that that's the smallest audience on earth to go find, okay? But we had a plan, and that plan was we were gonna run 38 pieces of creative for every single campaign. So we varied up the creative, this is just a sampling, but we did it 38 times for every time we ran a new campaign because we wanted to pick different people in different situations with different messaging to see which one of them worked on the platform. We ran all of this stuff on Facebook and LinkedIn, and it was huge. Nearly 1 million impressions and almost 6,000 clicks to the website. Now again, clicks are not a great barometer, and going from 0 to anything, like we ignore the 3,600% increase, right? Because when you go from 0 to doing something, it looks like you're a superhero when really you just did something. So ignore these percentages because they're ridiculous. But this is good. What we do with it afterwards is important, but all of that happens because we gave Facebook enough pieces of creative for it to serve the audience that it's gonna work. So as you're making your campaigns, the more creative you can put into the campaigns, the better off you're gonna be. And don't do it to the point that it breaks your team, or if you're a one-man team, that it breaks you, but I would at the very least, don't just run 1, run 3, or 4, or 5. And if you can vary what that looks like, image with nothing on it, image with some text on it, video with captions on it, and see what happens, you're gonna see that your stuff starts to do much better in the Facebook ecosystem because it has other things to show to the audience that you're trying to find. I've said this a couple times, but I want to say it one more time in relation to Facebook specifically. You want to create for your page way more than you curate. So this is my friend Justin Barclay, and he shares a lot of these stories. Can't read it in the back. This dying 24-year-old has life advice you might not be ready to hear. 7 pieces of toast that look like Taylor Swift, right? That's the sort of thing that he ends up sharing on his page. When he shared this particular post, Facebook sent him this. One of your recent posts goes against our page policy. There's a lot of text here, but the most interesting one is, you must not accept anything of value to drive traffic to an app or a site that engages in traffic arbitrage. or one that contains a disproportionate volume of ads relative to content. You guys all know what this site looks like. That's all ads and no content. They usually have things like 7 pieces of toast that look like Taylor Swift. I share this with you because there are 2 things at work in the Facebook planet that affect the way in which we do traffic, or do content. One of them is what happened with Cambridge Analytica, okay? How many of you are aware of the Cambridge Analytica stuff? Raise your hand. So 3 of you. So 3 of you may work with me, the rest of you, I'll give you a quick primer. They were a company out of the UK, and what they did is they worked on behalf of the Trump administration, and they ran this app underneath the Facebook ecosystem using the API. And what it would do is it would go to Ian. Ian would take a quiz. What piece of Taylor Swift toast do you most resemble, right? And this quiz was run by Cambridge Analytica, and Cambridge Analytica would ask him for access to his Facebook page and to his contacts. So when he's done with the quiz, he finds out that he's the rye bread toast, right? And he thinks everything's fine. Except that app has now taken every one of his contacts and dumped it into an audience to start serving political ads to them, right? Which turns out to be very illegal no matter what side of the aisle that you're on. So that company has since shut down, and Facebook has had to change a lot of the way in which they target people on Facebook and allow you to target people on Facebook. So that's one thing. The other thing is this law out of the European Union called GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which seeks to protect consumers from unwanted or unwarranted data mining. And so in that sense, Facebook sees this fake news and clickbait as the exact same thing. So if you are sharing stuff to your page, like the Taylor Swift toast thing, be warned that you might get dinged by Facebook and they won't show it to anybody, which is why you want to be in the position to be making more stuff than you're taking from the internet to share. Or take the stuff from the internet and give it your own voice. Record a 30-second video explaining your take on whatever that might be, the government shutdown, and so forth and so on. And a couple more notes about content. So I work with a number of chambers of commerce. This is the Sparta Chamber of Commerce. And I spoke there 2 years ago. And when I was there, I was talking about Facebook Live. And this is Becky, who runs the marketing for the Chamber of Commerce. And afterwards, she talked to me a little bit about Facebook Live and felt it was important to the Chamber, and she wanted to start. What you're seeing is her very first Facebook Live. It gets 1 like and 164 views, and she appears like she would rather be at the dentist. Right? However, the thing about getting up and making content, it's very similar to getting up and working out. Once you make it a discipline, it becomes part of what you do, and you do it over and over and over again. And Sparta's Chamber of Commerce doesn't need 1 million views. They just need the right amount of views. So 6 months after I took this glorious screen cap, right? This is what it looks like. It's got 14 likes and 1,000 views, and this woman looks like this is the best thing she's gonna do today, right? Because for 6 months, every week, she has done a Facebook Live talking to her audience, either giving away stuff or talking about the stuff happening in the city of Sparta that she wants people to be a part of. And all of these people are talking back to her. And so she's building a community around this page using Facebook Live as the way to do it. And so if you guys have not started making some sort of consistent piece of content, I highly recommend that this is the year that you start doing that, because it pays off big time. Right? There's no media spend to this. It's her phone and an event, and she goes on for maybe 10 minutes a week, and that's it. Okay, so before I start taking your questions, I got one last thing. And that one last thing is my friend Becca Aldrich. And last year, Becca was looking for a couch, because hers was, well, it needed some help, right? Disclaimer, she told me that that isn't her couch. But for the sake of the joke, that's her couch. She needs a new couch, and so what is she going to do to get a new couch? She could start at the Facebook Marketplace. She decides she's going to Google, right? She's going to search for it. She sees a lot of the usual suspects: Ashley Furniture, Art Van, Stone's Throw, Lost and Found. And for 4.5 months, she's searching on and off and can't find what she wants. goes to Macy's, can't find what she wants. And so one night, she's at home watching Netflix, and by watching Netflix, I mean she has Netflix on and she's on Instagram. And she comes across this company called Interior Define. And she goes, that is the sofa I've been looking for. And so much like our friend in the bar, she goes directly to their Facebook page and starts searching around and sees what this company is about. And then she goes to their website and she sees that they have free swatches, so she orders some. For all the guys in the room, swatches are pieces of cloth that you can use to match against the stuff in your house to make sure that it looks all right, okay? So she orders some. What she doesn't see is that they've got complimentary design advice, but she doesn't need to see it because the next morning they reach out to her and they say, hey Becca, I saw that you took some of these swatches. I've got 5 more I'd love to share with you. Can I put them in your package before I send it? She's like, yeah, this is amazing. And the woman's like, you think this is amazing? Hold my beer. And she tells her that they also have this app. And what this app does is it scans your living room and then gives you access to their inventory, and you pick the chair that you want, in the color that you want, and you put it in your living room. And you can see what it looks like in augmented reality. And so, obviously, this is where she buys her couch from. And this is what the couch looks like now, right? So she has this great experience. It's not like Interior Define just started making content when she started looking. They had been making that content the whole time, developing the app the whole time. And I have told this story, the row at the back is laughing because they probably heard it 3 times. I've told this story 1,000 times in a year. How much brand equity did Interior Define get by doing 2 things? Launching an app and reaching out and sending extra swatches. And how much did that, I mean, outside of the app development, the fact that they had it, like, how much did that one email to Becca cost them? As opposed to what it's done by everybody that Becca knows running around and telling this story. And so we want to make content in the ecosystem because our customers need the content. And we don't know when they're going to interact with us, so the best time to start is now. And so, as my friend Gritty would say, that's something in my mind that we should celebrate. And so with that, I will say thank you and take whatever questions you guys have.